Today on the newscast, the Palestinians urge the United Nations to expel Israel as the UN commemorates Israel's founding as a catastrophe. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, joins us for an exclusive interview next. Hey folks, Eric Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast, a quick update on Operation Shield and Arrow, which we've been covering here on the newscast in recent days. Israel and the Iran-backed terror group Palestinian Islamic Jihad reached a ceasefire over the weekend that continues to hold. Islamic Jihad fired over 1,200 rockets at Israel during the 5-day conflict. Many of them were intercepted by Iron Dome or fell inside Gaza, never reaching Israel. The ceasefire kicked in just as Israel yesterday marked the 75th anniversary of its miraculous rebirth as a nation on May 14, 1948. Now, the UN is also commemorating that momentous occasion by holding an event today, declaring Israel's reestablishment as a Nakba, or catastrophe. This viciously dishonest, historically inaccurate, anti-Israel hate fest is officially sanctioned by and held at the UN. Today, it's being held for the first time ever, and it includes a high-level meeting at the UN headquarters and a special event in the General Assembly Hall featuring Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. He did what he usually does, slamming Israel, repeating the Nakba lie, and accusing Israel of seeking a new so-called catastrophe against the Palestinians today. He also called on the UN to expel Israel as a member if Israel does not agree to a Palestinian state and a right of return for millions of Palestinian refugees' descendants, which would mean the end of the Jewish state, which is the real goal of Abbas and the other anti-Israel forces. After all, thankfully, some 32 nations, including the US, UK, Canada, and Ukraine, boycotted this Nakba Day event at Israel's urging. But far too many, obviously, took part and gave a platform to this madness at the UN. Now imagine being Israel's representative at the UN and having to walk into this hostile lion's den every day. It may be the world's most difficult diplomatic job. But the good news is Gilad Erdan is more than up to the task. As Israel's ambassador to the UN, Erdan represents the Jewish state every day at a notoriously anti-Israel institution. If you think I'm exaggerating, consider this. Since the UN was founded in the aftermath of World War II, it's passed more resolutions against Israel than any other nation. That includes Iran, North Korea, Communist China, Cuba, Syria, and the former Soviet Union. Thankfully, Ambassador Erdan is eloquent and fearless, and most importantly, he has the truth on his side. He's a rising political star in Israel, and he joined us recently in New York for an exclusive interview. Take a look. Ambassador Erdan, it is great to have you with us here on The Watchman. Welcome.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and you are a very busy man, obviously, as Israel's top diplomat at the UN. Some watching may say, why even have an ambassador post at the UN if you're Israel? Why is it so important that Israel does have a presence at the UN?
We live in an era where the reach of social media is endless. You know, Eric, today a lie can travel the world before the truth can even put its shoes on. And our enemies, they exploit the UN resolutions, the anti-Israeli resolutions, in order to harm Israel. I mean, we've seen what happened when Israel had to attack the Hamas terrorists in Gaza in our last operation 2 years ago. And the UN passed resolutions against Israel. So our enemies ignited anti-Semitic attacks here on the streets in New York, in LA. Then they exploited the UN resolutions to go after our soldiers and press charges in the International Criminal Court. Or they take these anti-Israeli resolutions and they put pressure on American companies like Ben & Jerry's to boycott Israel. So I have to be there. Israel has to be present at the UN to fight against the bias and the distortions and the lies that are being spread against us. And there's another thing, in every challenge, there's also an opportunity. So I can also utilize the fact that we have there around one table, almost 200 countries, to showcase our unimaginable technological advancements and maybe to also strengthen the Israeli economy by showcasing our capabilities.
As you said, it's so prevalent, the anti-Israel bias there. It's well known. What is your strategy when you take the floor at the UN representing Israel? How do you fight back against that in your position?
The UN was founded after the Second World War and after the atrocities of the Holocaust. But at the time, when they decided to establish the Jewish state, there were only 57 member states. Today, there are almost 200 member states, 193. You know how many of them are Muslim countries?
A good number.
Almost 1/3. 57 member states. You know, there are 1.5 billion Muslims around the world. So 1/3 of the UN, they vote automatically to support all the Palestinian demands and resolutions. Because the UN is so convoluted, you cannot decide any decisions, make any decisions or hold discussions with 200 member states. So the UN, they divide member states, they divide themselves into either regional or religious voting blocks. And many times, even though we have great relationships with a specific country, because it belongs to a regional or a religious voting blocks, so they vote according to the instructions they receive. For example, the UAE, we just made peace with the UAE. We had great bilateral relations with them, but they're being pressured by the Arab League or the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to vote against us, to initiate discussions against us. So that's why you see this bias. And if you want to hear some examples to the extent of the bias.
And you see it up close every day.
Yeah, but it's crazy. So Israel today represents, we're a tiny country. You've been there many times. Yeah. We represent only 1/10% of the world population. But how many condemnations do we receive at the UN annually?
Since the beginning of the UN, hundreds, more, I believe, Ambassador, than any other nation, Israel has been condemned at the UN,
okay,
including China, North Korea, Iran.
Combined. So we receive, in general, 70% of the UN's condemnations. The UN voted to establish a Jewish state 75 years ago. And now what is going to happen at the UN? The Palestinians are going to hold a very big gathering inside the General Assembly Hall to commemorate the establishment of the State of Israel as a Nakba. What does it mean? A catastrophe. It's such a disgrace that I cannot even describe it with words. So that's the situation right now at the UN. But I have to tell you something. I decided to implement two main tactics. The first one is that since Israel, as we all know, started as a survivor nation, but we morphed to a kind of a startup nation, our technological advancement, and today we are very proud and we call ourselves the impact nation because we develop many solutions to the world's most pressing challenges. So I don't think that I should be apologetic. We have so many things to be proud of, so I'm not going to bow my head. I'm going to fight in order to expose the lies and the hypocrisy, and I don't care who's on the other side. The Russians, of all countries, they convened the Security Council on our Memorial Day in order to condemn Israel. So they thought I'm going to come and participate in their shameful discussion. I did the opposite. I came there, I lit a candle and I put the candle on the Security Council's desk. I read out the names of our fallen soldiers and victims of the terror attacks. I slammed the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I proudly walked out of this discussion. That's what I mean, going on the offensive. And that's my first and main tactic to be used at the UN. And the other tactic, and I mentioned the regional and religious group, So in order to try and convince member states to, break away from their regional voting blocks and change their voting patterns, I initiate many events, creative events, to showcase Israel contributions and technologies, to show them how much they can gain from collaborating with Israel. I mean, I held an event where I invited all the African ambassadors, and I introduced them to a few Israeli NGOs who are active and working in Africa to connect many African villages to running water, because Israel is a world leader on water technologies or renewable energy, literally giving life to these people who live in those villages. So when the African ambassadors, they see our contribution to their people, it makes it more complicated for them to vote against us.
Israel is blessing Africa. It really is, in so many ways, most of all water, like you said.
Yeah, we prioritize, we believe in the Jewish value, what we call in Hebrew tikkun olam, healing a fractured world. So whenever and wherever we can help another country, we're doing our best to be there and to help the people who needs us. It's still an uphill battle, the UN, but we can already see the accomplishments. Thank God, I was elected personally as the vice president of the General Assembly for 2023. Israel last year was first time ever was elected as a member on the Economic and Social Council of the UN. I succeeded last year to pass, second time ever, General Assembly resolution to how to fight, providing practical tools to fight against Holocaust denial and distortions. So, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but we are succeeding to erode the number of countries who are voting against us automatically. And my vision is to shatter the anti-Israeli majority at the UN.
Thanks again to Ambassador Gilad Erdan for those great insights. Folks, if you want to watch my entire interview with Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, tune in to TBN this Thursday night, May 18th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a brand new episode of The Watchman Show. I will be speaking to Ambassador Erdan not only about Iran and those threats and what he faces every day at the UN, but his personal motivations for taking this very high-profile, high-pressure job. I think you will find that fascinating. So tune in this Thursday night, May 18th, again, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, or you can catch the re-air on Friday, May 19th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TBN. Don't miss it, folks. It's a great interview, and Ambassador Gilad Erdan is certainly one to watch on the Israeli political scene, a major player now and in the years to come. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today here on the Watchman Newscast. Until next time, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.